Francine Eisen, Jonah Enbar, Stephen Engelman, Doreen Evans, Eslyn Garber, Phyllis Goldblatt, Don Randolfo, Rick Gretsch, Robert Heyman, Leah Jones, Carl Coleman, Harold Katz, Jeffrey Krause, Roy Lloyd, Miriam Lyon, Gerald Marks, Eileen McNichols, Jimmy Miller, Sharon Montesi Garskoff, Moshe Ben-Chaya Ben-Natan, Irene Noperstadt, Lois Pavlon, Aaron Potter, Garrett Priest, Rich Reisman, Ellen Sager, Casey Ciengo, Christian Ralph Skinner, Rob Stein, Tali Stein, Cameron Michael Taft, John Thomas, Abraham Ben-Sivia, Yosef Raphael Ben-Yehudit. Are there any names that you would like to add?
I don't think we mentioned Gloria, Wendy Van Wilson, Morgan, Orca, Debbie, family, and Vivian.
And of course, if there's any names that you can't say aloud because we can't hear them and you're not with us, or if there's any names that you carry in your heart, we'll gather them into our hearts as we sing together. Page 371. Make us source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We shall with your full strength, the renewal spirit, and let us say, Amen. Okay, we're going to take a minute and read a little bit from Haftarah. Just sing a shout out to the page for me.
What are you reading?
All right, you know what? She doesn't want to start with material here. I don't think we capture what to write this book. Yeah, it'd be great to have a different book. Let's see. We have a book, Haftarah in it. That's not going to help. Come on. You know what we're going to do?
Here.
Oh, wait. I was just gonna use new technology. I don't have to use old technology. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. We're just gonna read a little. Okay. So the Haftarah this week comes from the Book of Kings, which is kind of interesting because most of the Haftarah come from more of the prophecy, books of prophets, right? They come from, the Book of Kings is more of a historical book, and the books of prophets, though Kings is officially part of the books of prophets, on Shabbat mornings, the Haftarah usually come from the more visionary books like Jeremiah and Isaiah and Micah. But because this is an accounting of King Solomon, and we equate King Solomon with many, many things, but also with the building of the temple, and because the Mishkan was finished, we read this. So, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar b'milim tovim, v'ratzah b'divreihem me'orim le'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Aboker b'Torah Moshe abdo v'Yisrael amo v'yeh hayanet b'tzedek. Thus, after all the work that King Solomon had wrought in his house of the Lord was finished, and Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated, the silver and the gold, and the vessels, and put them in the treasuries of the house of God. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the princes of the fathers, houses of the children of Israel, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Tzur kol ha'adamim tzadik b'chol hadorot. Ha'el hane'eman ha'omer v'oseh ha'medabir b'chayim shebal Torah v'emet v'tzedek. HaTorah v'yalakutah v'yapanim v'chadim v'shabbat hazeh she'natata lanu Adonai to shavim v'cha le'lavot tiferet. Okay, we're going to return the Torah to the ark. I'm noticing the time, and I want to make sure that the people on the screen are able to be with us when we say Kaddish. I know that some people have arrived to be sure they say Kaddish, so I want to make sure that happens. I will address the Torah once again. It's being said in the ark. If you can all stand up, we are on page 374. Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki Nizkar Shemo Bevado. Eretz v'shamayim, v'ayolem Tilo lechol chatzimah, B'nei Yisrael ha'kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kireh Hatov. All right. Thank you guys for continuing the music. We'll all be seated. So, I wrote myself a few notes about 21 or 22 years ago, someone broke their leg. And why it's important that a colleague of mine broke their leg is that they were planning to accompany a trip of students to Ukraine. And about 2 weeks before the trip, they broke their leg, and I had a passport, and so I just sort of spun it on, I had a passport. So I accompanied about 13 students to Ukraine. As a matter of fact, to Kharkiv, Ukraine. And that fellow is about 25 years old, so it was very new when we went. And one of the things that I remember when we got there, we stopped in Kiev and looked at a few places, and then went down to Kharkiv where we stayed for a week. We were there to be babysitters. And it was an amazing experience because although it was already, 2000, maybe 2001, the Soviet Union hadn't been open for so long, and there were people who still hadn't experienced Jewish things since they were 5 years old. And we brought singers to people's homes, and someone, there were people who were 85 and 90 years old who had shown us, they said they knew their mother had a special plate, or they knew their mother had a special something, and it always came out in spring when they weren't sure why. And we teamed up with some students from Ukraine who spoke both Russian and Ukrainian. And sometimes when we were alone with someone, between my Hebrew and a little bit of Yiddish that I had that I have more now, and one of our students spoke German, we were sort of able to cobble together conversations. But what I remember especially was the warmth and excitement of the students, and that we were very careful before we went to learn some tunes that they might know. And when we got there, they knew all the tunes that we knew. Right? So we got to go on, I will never forget the warmth with which they embraced us. And I remember actually, before the days of FaceTime, dialing my parents here in Chicago, just holding up the phone and letting me hear the amazing song. So you may have seen actually on Facebook or in other social media that when Kharkiv was bombed this week, that the Hitler building was destroyed. And there are pictures of before and after. But what got me and what brought me to this portion were two things. First of all, there's a menorah there, right? And it held a place sort of honor where you walk into a room and there it was. And in this portion, they affixed the menorah to a place of honor. And one of the things that survived was the menorah. And there it is, still right there on the wall. So I've been thinking about that. And then I've also been thinking a great deal about, about this cloud, right? So there's this cloud that we read at the end of the Torah portion that when the cloud is in the Mishkan, that people can't go in. And it's unclear if the Mishkan is physically filled with the cloud and there's just no room for a person, or if it's metaphorically filled with this cloud that is God, and God's holiness is so great that there's no going in, sort of like a mine, you just can't do it. But here's what's interesting about that cloud. So you may remember that way back in Exodus, Moses finds God in a burning bush, right? So what we know, what the Midrash, what the stories of the Torah teach us, is that fire didn't stay in that bush. That it accompanied the people that it's the same fire that showed Moses who God was, that fire accompanied the people, but that sometimes the cloud didn't overtake it, it just surrounded it, right? The fire was never extinguished. The cloud was just around it. And when the cloud lifted, the people could see the fire. And when the cloud went back down, they moved. It's like a story that a teacher of mine taught me a number of years ago. I was at camp, and it had been pouring for days. And if you're ever at camp and it's been pouring for days, you know, the first couple of days are fun, because you watch movies and slide around in the sun, but the third and fourth day kind of gets annoying, because you can't do all the things you want to do. And the teacher said, asked a group of students if they felt that the sun was always shining. And most of them were kind of bummed out. They'd been there for a while. And they said, of course it's like, really, look, do you see the sun shining? And he said, well, of course the sun is always shining. Sometimes it's just covered up by the clouds. Like the sun doesn't stop shining. And so I think about this Torah portion and God's presence and all that's going on in the world. And if you look at Hillel of Ukraine and bombed what looks like wreckage, right? All we can see is a cloud. Right? All we can see is a cloud. But there have been so many instances when we allow ourselves to be reminded of them, where there's a fire inside that cloud, right? The menorah still stands. There's a fire inside that cloud. And I think that whenever we feel as though the world is something too difficult, not that we're not allowed to feel those feelings, sometimes the world feels incredibly difficult and we need to sit with it. But in the back of our minds, we should remember, we're not exactly sure when. The people of Israel weren't exactly sure when. The cloud didn't lift on a schedule, but they waited, and the cloud lifted. And when the cloud lifted, there was fire, and they were able to move again. So that's my short lesson for today. I want to make sure that we get to a later accomplishment, so our friends are still with us. So we're going to pick up on page 586, and I'm going to ask you to rise. Alleluia, Shabbat, Page 588. Page 500. You can be seated momentarily while I share this week's podcast. This week we remember Ruth Adler, Phyllis Elbert, Alan L. Atkins, Paul Bassa, Ray Baskin, Joseph Brownstein, Sidney Cholden, Jeanette X, Michael Federer, Milton Hartog, Stephanie Hayes, Sarah Holtmark, Philip Kirimer, Jane Kaufman, Jack Cole, Harriet Const, Samuel Lasky, Joan Legatino, Albert Liebenstein, Fanny Loeb, Edith Gold Lowe, Isidore Marks, Henry Morgan, Nancy Lowe Murphy, Leo Narenberg, Stanley Owens, Alvin Rose, Louis Rosenblum, Herman Schipper, Philippe Schloss, Louis Shapira, Sarah Solomon, Jerome Spilkey, Henrika Ubanska, Fanny Van Emden, Augusta Gottlieb Wolf, Bernard Yeager, Nathan Houston, and in recent days, Robert Drucker, Irving Trachtenberg, Doreen Godfrey, and Edie Harris. We rise as we remember them with love. Page 598. Yikadal, Yikadash, Shemerabah, Yamad, Yibrath, Yute, Yamlifma, Pute, V'chayichon, V'chon, V'chayed, V'obeit Yisrael, V'alav, Yizman, Chavi, Yibrim, Yesh, Ben, Rabba, V'orat, Yom, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yikhar, Yishtabach, Yinaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalel, Shmei, V'shah, Le'elam, Yikol, V'chata, V'shivata, Tush, V'chata, V'nechamata, Daviram, V'amav, Yibru, Yesh, Lama, Rama, V'shmaya, V'chayim, Amen, V'yakol, Yisrael, V'yibru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'amav, Hui, Oseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'yakol, Yisrael, May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel as together we say, Amen. You can be seated. Let's close with that journal on page 695. Let's see what version. Adonai, Asher Allah, Keter Tzimi Adonai. Ve'nasa ve'efsuko, azana l'shemoni ra'adonam, v'yacharei kibotako, l'vado yimot ra'adonam, v'uhaya v'uhoga, v'uyeveti fara'adonam, Adonam, Hashem Allah. Temple, it's here, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.